Good morning, fellow streakers. How's everyone doing out there? It is a fantastic day. We are so excited today.
We are excited today.
I have been so excited. Why is it a good day for you?
Because things are coming along. We're closer to the book coming out, the app we started beta testing.
Oh, man, and it has been so much fun to be beta testing the app. I can't, I'll tell you, it's one of those things, it's a little bit of trepidation because it's like this app that you're releasing and everyone's going to have an opportunity to look at it and give their comments or thoughts about it. And I already love it. And so it's going to be a little bit hard to hear some of the feedback, which people won't like.
I know. You just have to like it, people. We've decided. It's great. Just like it.
The thing about the app, which is really cool, so we've gone into beta testing, and there's a couple of neat things about it. First of all, in beta testing, we're learning how people are interacting with the app.
Right.
And there's been a couple of things that we realize that are not quite as intuitive as we thought they might be at first.
Right. So we're learning how to make it more intuitive.
To take the technology out of the way of it. Like, for example, one of the things one of our beta testers was saying, well, how do I mark if I completed the streak or not?
Right. Which is so interesting because you fill out all your streaks and then there's a little hexagon on the side.
That's empty.
That's empty, and you push the hexagon and it fills up, but we didn't realize that you wouldn't know that.
Right.
We're like, oh.
It's not quite as intuitive.
It's not quite as intuitive as we thought.
Because we designed the whole app.
Exactly. Because we knew in our mind, well, we want something, you just push the button.
Right.
But we didn't realize that it would be.
Right,
and
exactly.
it's so fun. You think that things are. It's interesting to me that you have thoughts in your head and you realize how hard it is to make sure that everyone kind of has that same thought and understanding. It takes a lot more effort than what I realized.
So the other thing that isn't quite as intuitive, well, it's not intuitive at all, actually, is a long press on the streak itself to see some more details about the streak.
Yes, that's a cool thing too. So once you put your streak in, if you hold on the actual word of your streak, then it opens up, and then you can share your streak with people.
Well, so the other cool part is with beta testers now, we've started to add to our community. So in law number 3, create a community. What I love is that for each individual streak, I can add different communities. So I can add you, you're on all of my streaks as a community, but then there's other people who I have on individual streaks, or if I didn't want to share a streak at all, which we'll talk about in a later podcast.
Yes, we will.
Is one of the things is you can keep it completely private, right?
Right, and not have to share it if you don't want to, but you can if you want.
But I think it's pretty cool how you can look up the names of the people, and share whether or not.
I know, I love it.
Which streak to share.
Right. So it's coming along really well. The beta testing is fun. We're learning so much. We're excited for it to get out there. The thing I'm most excited about is that I love being able to have the app to use throughout the day to help me do what I want to be doing all day long.
Yeah. The other thing that has happened this week, pretty cool, is we sold the first copy of the book.
Yay. Someone ordered.
Were you pretty excited though?
Yes,
I mean, when that came
excited.
through.
It's awesome.
And just a shout out to that individual who ordered the first copy of the book. Thank you, Jonelle. You are absolutely wonderful. We love you and everything that you've been and done for us in our lives. You guys are a fantastic example to us. So thank you for ordering officially the first copy of the book.
Officially the first order online.
Yep, and that went in the mail yesterday. Yep. And here's the thing with the book. It is available for pre-order right now. If you want to go out there, you can go to our site, streakingmastery.com. We've got a special edition of the book that we're offering there, an autographed copy. So you will get Jamie's great signature, and I'll sign it too. Anyway, you'll have that, and you can have that through the website. But then you can also order at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Indie Books. Yeah, so Page 2 has done a phenomenal job. They're our publisher. But you can go out now and pre-order the book, again, through streakingmastery.com or through any of those other areas.
Yep, official launch date, September 22nd.
Yeah, when it's actually released, which that will be the date that the app is out too.
Yes, it will.
So there's one more thing with the app that's been pretty cool that I think relates to the topic that we want to talk about today.
Yes. It's something that I've been excited about. Oh, you too, because you wrote an article on it. But it's something that we were talking about the other day. And the app, I feel like, is a visual reminder of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
What was the name of the blog that you wrote?
So the name of the blog is, just before we go there, do you know that our podcast is listened to throughout the world? I was kind of looking at this. It's kind of fun, the stats on this. And there are listeners all over the globe, from the United States, India, Spain, Germany, Ireland, Australia, Angola, that's in Africa, Canada. We've got listeners in Belgium, Israel, Morocco, Denmark, Bangladesh, Finland, Italy. The list goes on.
Really?
Yeah.
And it tells you where people download the...
All over the world. That's one of the things that I love about what we do here, and the opportunity is with the technology is to see, just how it's available out there to anyone to listen to.
Anyone to listen to. Well, and I just love that we're at a time in life where people all over the world have access to all of these things.
Yes. There's no boundaries, no borders as far as the internet is concerned.
Right.
Yeah, there is some control and things like that, but it is pretty neat that we can talk about some of the things that we love with all of you.
Right.
And that's what I look at as a
We
global
can learn
audience.
from people all over the world.
Which is one of the things that happens too, is these people from all over the world send us emails on some of the different streaking stuff that's going on. So with that being said, we go back to the app. So there is one particular part of the app. And at first it was something that we had, we needed a way to, if we accidentally mismarked that we had completed the streak, right?
Right. So at the early beginning of it, when you're clicking it and then you're like, oh, rats, I didn't mean to click that one. And so we needed an undo button, basically. And so what they put in is you click the app or you click the hexagon that shows that you've completed that. And then you get this little bar that is a red bar, and a cancel button comes up, and it gives you this little timer that basically you have like 3 seconds to cancel if you undo if you need to. Right.
If I mismarked it or something like that, I can cancel.
I
didn't complete that yet today.
Whoops, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
And at first, it was interesting because there's this little red bar that gets smaller and goes away, and that means your time is out. Now you've missed your time to cancel. And at first, I was kind of a little bit like, wow, that's a really long, like I have to sit here and wait for that to finish.
Right.
But I have grown to love that part of the app.
And why?
Because it's this little visual cue and this little visual reminder to stop for a second and appreciate that I intentionally did that thing today. Like it's just 3 seconds, and I just watch the little bar disappear, and then the cancel button goes away. But it's just this little reaffirmation, this little moment in time that I stop and I just for that brief moment give that streak a little bit of time to think, yeah, I did that today.
I think that that's important too, because as we have and talked about, as you have a streak, it aligns with who you want to be. And so what I love about that space of time, from the time that I mark it to the time that it actually says,
okay,
it counts.
It counts.
You know what I mean? Check, it counts. One of the things that I did at first is I would, like, for example, I'd complete 3 or 4 of my streaks, and then I'd just go in and I'd click, 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 click.
Right.
And what would happen is that little space of time would go on, and I would get a little bit impatient. I'm like, could we hurry this along? And I was almost I was going to call the developers. I was going to talk to Dave, and I say, look, this is a little bit long.
Right.
However, and this is kind of the cool part, is once I slowed down, because it's not that, I mean, it's really not even 3 seconds. I think it's like a second and a half.
It's not very long at all, but
that little moment of time, it gives me a little bit of an endorphin shot to look at it and say, wow, I just did that. I did this one thing today that aligns with who I want to be. I'm growing just a little bit more. And I've really come to love that piece of it.
I love it.
It slows me down so that I'm not so impatient, which brings me to law number 1.
Which is what you wrote about this week.
Laughably simple. It's kind of interesting to think. We laugh about it.
I know.
As far as that little bar counting down,
that little thing would become important. I guess that's it. That little moment in time becomes important to me, where I'm like, I'm just going to stop for a second and appreciate this.
Which brings us to law number 1. As we look at law number 1 and consider the laughably simple, keep it laughably simple. When we first came up with law number 1, or when we saw it, it was to overcome the brain's natural rejection response, or my laziness. I mean, let's just put it this way. I enjoy a good show sitting on the couch or in bed, streak watching.
Oh my goodness.
What?
We do. We enjoy watching our shows.
Why are you
I
laughing?
think sometimes the other thing I think about with law number one is that one, overcoming a bit of laziness, but for me also wanting to win, not wanting to have things be so big that I have to live at this super significant level every single day.
Yeah.
I can get that level a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but not all the time.
Right.
And sometimes not a lot. Sometimes I go through times where I have, you go through a slump where you're just like, I am not living up to my usual level.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of what my thought process was when we were talking about Laughably Simple too, is my thinking of, I do
So
not
you love
want to
this?
hold myself accountable
Folks,
to this
just
whole
notice
day.
the difference here. Jamie wasn't living up to a level. I was just trying to overcome laziness.
I think both are important and both are.
She was not living at this maximum level and wanted a way to win. And I was like, I need to get off the couch.
You're so funny. I just think that
I love it.
we both go through times of both of those feelings, I think, where there's times where you're just like, okay, I got to get my butt in gear here and got to get going.
But
and
binge
other
watching a
times
show,
where
I mean, I want to be a professional binge watcher.
I know, and we are well on our way.
Yes,
Aren't we doing great?
Yes, we are.
So that was I think it is
She
twofold.
is
though.
referencing right now. The other night, we decided to be as if we were teenagers, and we binge watched a show till like 1 a.m.
No, it was just till 12:30. But then our teenager, so we're joking about, we're just like, oh my gosh, we were so stupid last night. We stayed up till 12:30 watching this show. And our one teenager was like, 12:30. She's like, if you haven't watched 3 seasons and heard the birds chirping, you haven't really done a full binge. I thought, oh dear.
Is there something we need to know a little bit
Should
more
we
about our
know that?
teenager?
Anyway, thought that was
Yeah,
funny.
because she said, yeah, when I heard the birds chirping, I knew I was in trouble.
Yeah.
So the idea of overcoming some of those things, the natural tendencies, was, as we looked at law number one and consider it, is the natural tendencies keep me in this place of not growing,
Right.
of not getting there. And so law number one, keep it laughably simple, as far as making a streak that's laughably simple, such as read one paragraph daily, one paragraph in a nonfiction book daily, was so that I could overcome some of the hurriedness, overcome some of the things that took my time that were maybe more urgent, those
Right,
type of things.
Right. So we had an interesting email just last night that asked us in streaking. It was like, you've been streaking for a while. Are you still learning new things as you're streaking? Are you still learning new things?
Mm-hmm.
This is what is so cool is we've talked about Laughably Simple a lot.
Well, for years,
Yeah.
for 5 years now.
But I feel like we stumbled across something this last week that changed it. And it has to do with a book that you're reading.
Right. So in the book that I'm reading is called How to Think Like a Rocket Scientist. Yeah. And this is by Ozan Varol, maybe Varol, Ozan Varol. And one of the things that Ozan Varol talks about is, in one particular part, he talks about thought experiments. And this is a paragraph. Now, he's talking about thought experiments. He's saying we need to be able to slow down and think in order to really get creative and to have some of the things that will move us along toward creative solutions or problem resolution.
Like I think you'd mentioned one time we talk about, kids saying, you don't hear very often anymore, I'm bored. Or if you do, it's not always the worst thing in the world to be bored.
Right.
That maybe there's some time where you're like, you go through this boredom so that you get to this point where you start to think creatively.
So I thought
outside the
about
box.
maybe setting a streak about being bored once a day.
There you go. I don't know how you do. I want to be bored once a day.
Well, I think what it is actually on this book, I thought about a streak. So one of the individuals he quotes, and I forgot who it was. It was some philosopher or great, thinker, has a thinking chair. And I thought, that'd be a great streak. You just go sit in your thinking chair at least once a day.
Oh, nice. Thinking chair. I love that. Different than a timeout chair.
A little bit.
Maybe not. Maybe a timeout chair is a thinking chair.
Maybe you need a timeout chair that is a thinking. Maybe timeout isn't that bad after all. What we thought was punishment is actually
a opportunity
helping our
to
child
grow.
become a genius.
Creative thinking.
Because you're in the timeout thinking chair.
Thinking chair.
You need to go over there and think for a little while. How long do I have to think?
Yes. How long? So going on to what you were writing about.
I was really enjoying talking about the thinking chair, and now you're pushing
you
us
can
forward.
have a thinking chair. We'll get you a really nice thinking chair.
So what he says about thought experiments is, so taking the opportunity to allow yourself to think, because you were talking about being bored and so forth.
Yes.
And that's giving the time to think. And he says this, in this era, and this is from the book itself, in this era of move fast and break things, curiosity can seem like an unnecessary luxury. With an inbox zero ethos and an unyielding focus on hustle and execution, answers appear efficient. They illuminate the path forward and give us that life hack so we can move on to the next thing on our to-do list. Questions, on the other hand, are exceedingly inefficient. If they don't yield immediate answers, they're unlikely to get a slot on our overloaded calendars.
I love that.
What I thought about, so what hit me as I thought about that particular right there, that paragraph, is I thought about law number 1 and make it laughably simple. And all of a sudden, I realized that law number 1 does help me to overcome some of my natural rejection response. But the other thing that it does is it gives me the opportunity to have the space of time to think about it.
Right.
In other words, if I slow down and say, I'm only going to read one paragraph in a nonfiction book, and I give myself permission, at first, it's laughably simple. And on its face, it's like, okay, I did that, move on. In other words, what he was saying here is, I'm going to check that off my list and go forward, which I believe is important.
Right.
I think it's critical that I have things that are pointing me toward who I want to be, that are laughably simple, that I can check off my list. The other side of that is that it allows me to pause on one paragraph. In other words, I'm not judging my progress based on getting the book done or when I finish the book.
Right. And you brought up an interesting point when we were talking about this, in the fact that, so what we do is we say, okay, I'm going to read at least one paragraph in a book. Oftentimes thinking, well, once you start that one paragraph, you're going to read more.
Right.
So most of the time you're doing more than that.
Which, in all honesty, a lot of times I do.
A lot of times you are. And what that does is take away that feeling of, well, I have to do a whole bunch. I don't want to start now, or I don't have time. And it allows you to say, oh, I've got time to do this much. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I actually did a little more than I thought.
Right.
But the thing that you said the other day that was interesting is you said, what I've realized is that by only having it be a paragraph in that book, if it was like a page, because you had another thing that you had like a page or a chapter.
Right.
And you said, I realized I was still working to make sure I got that chapter done. So I would read something and a thought would come and I'd want to percolate on it for a minute, but I was feeling a bit of pressure to get that streak done. I needed to get that whole chapter done for the streak, which you decided was maybe a little bit of a bigger streak than what you wanted. And you realized, wow, keeping it laughably simple, so simple, not only helps me to get started and overcome the feeling that I need a whole bunch of time to make this happen, but to get started, it gives me permission to, 1, succeed right out of the beginning. 2, I can go further if I want. But the other thing that you discovered the other day is it gives you permission to not go further.
Yeah.
It gives you permission to be like, I'm just going to think on this for a minute, and I'm still being successful. I'm still doing what I want to do, being who I want to be. In fact, in some ways, even more so, because I'm taking a little bit of time here and I've given myself permission to take that time and just sit and think about this for a minute. I'm not hurrying on to the next thing right away, which is, I think, what was being said in the book, that he's like, we're in this culture of hurry, get things done, move on to the next thing. How can we be more efficient? How can we get more done? How can we? And this is letting us step back a little bit and say, it's okay to be non-efficient in this moment and have some creative thought, to just let your mind think for a bit on these things.
Absolutely. There was one other thing that it helped with as well. And I was thinking about this, is my ego around how much I've read or how many books I have under my belt. It's kind of that badge of honor, the courage badge that says, well, I've read so many books.
Right.
And somewhat to brag. Now, I may not have remembered any of those books or really learned or absorbed what was in there. However, I have that opportunity to say, well, I've been reading for this many days, and I have read this many books.
Right.
And one of the things that you and I have often talked about is that if the number of days that I have becomes the badge of honor, then I'm doing it for the wrong
You've lost
reasons.
your focus.
I've lost my focus.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing though, because it's a balance. Because the question is how long can I keep this going?
Right.
And I'll tell you, that has made absolute significant changes in my life, bar none. I never want to give that up.
Right.
I also, though, want to maintain the focus that the reason why I'm keeping this streak alive is because it's driving me toward who I want to be.
To becoming who I want to be, to not get
Exactly.
so focused that the streak itself becomes the important thing, but more the reason you have a streak is to become the person
Right.
you want to be.
So in one of the things that you and I talked about is maybe one of the streaks I have is too much. And it's laughably simple for me, but maybe it's a little bit too much, and I need to even bring it back further so that I have the space to think about it. In other words, I don't feel rushed to move forward to the next thing. And so I'm overcoming ego and saying, well, I do this. And you've said it so many times, and sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to get, but you've said how if you can say your streak to someone and they're impressed by it, it's probably too hard.
Yeah.
I think that's...
Or I think it is. I mean, it's the whole... There is something to be said about that you've got the wrong purpose there, or you've made
Right.
it too hard, or it shouldn't be impressive. It's so counterintuitive, but it just shouldn't
really
be impressive.
Is. But because it's a slow burn, it takes it takes time to get there, which brings me up to, I got an email last night. And it was a great email. You've already mentioned it. And I'm going to throw it out there as far as he's got to be the streaker of the week. He's just got to be the streaker of the week. And this is Ammon. Ammon, a great big thank you to your email. I get a lot of emails all the time. This one was particularly interesting because Ammon took a lot of time, energy, and effort to really delineate some of his questions. And I'm going to answer him back, and we'll answer some of those questions here. But Ammon...
That was one of the questions that he asked is like, are you guys still learning stuff as you're doing this? And
yes.
Most definitely.
And absolutely. It's one of the things that we look at is we're always learning. I mean, that's the beauty of the principle of streaking, the consistency, is it keeps us going.
Right.
Well, guess what?
We're out of time.
We're out of time. We'll have to do this again next week. What do you say?
I love it.
All right.
Same bat channel.
Hey, we are looking forward. If you want to go out and pre-order the book, please do at our site, streakingmastery.com, or at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Indie
Books.
If you have a question for us that you'd like us to answer or to feature you on our podcast, we'd love to. Just email us, Jeffrey, Jeffery, at streakingmastery.com, or
Jamie, Jami, at streakingmastery.com.
have a great day and keep streaking.
It's the small and simple things that make you grow into what you're hoping. You're in a hurry, don't even worry. It's too simple not to do. It's the little things that make a better you, a better you.